The polished conference table inside Joint Base Andrews Command Center vibrated faintly as 12 senior officers argued over a security breach no one wanted to claim responsibility for. Voices overlapped in heated disagreement, tempers flared like sparks, and the air felt thick with competing egos and mounting urgency. No one noticed the side door open quietly. Captain Alexis Kane stepped in carrying a simple metal tray of coffee cups, no rank visible on her sleeves, no insignia anywhere, just a tall blonde woman moving with the kind of practiced invisibility that people overlook every single day. Colonel Marcus Webb saw her first and smirked loud enough for the room to hear clearly. "Did the cafeteria staff get lost again?" Major Vincent Cross chuckled from his seat, leaning back in his chair with casual arrogance. "Wrong room, sweetheart. This is where actual decisions get made." Lieutenant Colonel Sarah Brennan didn't even bother lowering her voice as she waved dismissively in Alexis's direction. "How does random personnel even access classified briefings? Someone needs to seriously fix security around here." Laughter rolled around the table in waves. Snide grin, dismissive gestures, condescending looks. Alexis didn't react visibly. Her steps were controlled, balanced, precise, in a way none of them registered as anything but routine service work. Except for Staff Sergeant Dylan Reed, positioned in the corner. His eyes narrowed with sudden interest. Her posture wasn't hospitality staff. It was tactical discipline disguised as quiet service. Welcome to Secrets Never Told. Before we dive into this powerful story of hidden identity and justice, make sure to subscribe so you never miss these untold tales of courage. And tell us in the comments, where are you watching from today? Alexis Kane looked specifically designed to disappear into backgrounds. Tall, but not imposing enough to draw attention. Blonde hair pulled back in a simple low ponytail. Blue eyes that appeared soft and approachable behind thin wire-framed glasses. She wore a plain service uniform with sleeves carefully rolled to her elbows. No rank insignia anywhere. No unit patches. Nothing at all hinting at her true identity or background. To the officers gathered in the room, she was living furniture, invisible by design and intention. They whispered among themselves that she'd clearly wandered in from the wrong building entirely. One joked quietly that she probably thought classified briefing meant extra sugar in the coffee. The assumptions came ridiculously easy because she looked so ordinary, so unremarkable, carrying coffee instead of classified folders or weapons. But Alexis wasn't ordinary, not remotely, not even close. Her blue eyes tracked every single movement in the room with calculating silence that wasn't timid or uncertain. Who leaned back too confidently in their chairs? Who tapped nervously on the polished table? Who carefully avoided making eye contact when sensitive topics arose in conversation? Her awareness came from years of surviving in places where missing a single small detail could mean immediate death. When someone mentioned Operation Nightfall, her breathing shifted. Her left hand moved toward her hip in a weapon draw pattern that lasted half a heartbeat. She placed a cup before Major Foster, who barely looked up until Major Cross knocked his coffee sideways. Alexis moved before anyone blinked. She didn't dab like a server. She contained the spill with field hazmat technique, surrounding edges, preventing spread, isolating flow. Foster's eyebrows lifted. That wasn't hospitality. That was combat training. Reed noticed more. She was mapping the room without appearing to, marking exits, blind spots, sightline. She knew where every officer stood, every camera pointed, where cover existed if things went wrong. Inside, she carried the weight of 9 names, faces, voices, teammates who trusted her with their lives. Their memories pressed against her chest every time she entered rooms filled with people who didn't understand the cost of careless decision. She'd learned grief wasn't weakness, it was armor, but only if kept locked tight. She didn't flinch when mocked, didn't respond when dismissed. She wasn't there to be seen. She was there for justice. Real justice for teammates who never came home. Her posture wasn't submission, it was control. Patience sharpened to a blade. The day she stepped into Joint Base Andrews as anonymous staff wasn't when she disappeared. It was when she began hunting truth. The briefing began with Colonel Webb barking orders, jabbing at a Yemen map on screen. A catastrophic breach had cost American lives, and command was scrambling for answers. Yet Webb's irritation drifted toward the woman placing coffee beside him. "Why is she still here? Do we not have security protocols?" Cross snorted. "Maybe she's moonlighting as intel support. Budget cuts, you know." General Monroe added. "Support personnel should stay out of classified discussions." Webb crossed his arms. "Exactly. Someone escort her out." Alexis continued her route, placing cups with perfect rhythm, but humiliation echoed through the room like static only she heard. Cross watched her reach the far end, then shoved his cup deliberately. Coffee spilled across the polished table. "Oops, let's see how she handles pressure." Brennan snickered. "Bet she panics." Cross added with a cruel edge. "Maybe she's only here because someone upstairs thinks she's attractive." The sexist tone made junior officers shift uncomfortably. quickly, but no one spoke up. Before anyone reacted, Alexis reached the spill. Her hands moved in controlled precision, containing edges, blocking flow, preventing spread with hazmat protocols used under combat conditions. No panic, no hesitation. Perfect trained response. Cross's smirk faltered. Brennan's sneer faded. Monroe raised an eyebrow, puzzled by her technique. Webb tapped the table. Impressive cleanup, but maybe keep tactical reflexes at home, sweetheart. Hesitant laughter returned. Alexis remained steady. She finished, stepped back to her position by the wall. No anger, no humiliation, just silent readiness, waiting for something far more important than insults. The briefing resumed. Webb zoomed on Yemen terrain. Intelligence indicates a team was compromised at these coordinates. Enemy had advanced knowledge of timing and personnel. Alexis said quietly. 9 operators. Insertion point 3 kilometers north of the marked location. The room froze. Foster turned sharply. That's exactly correct. 9 operators. 3 clicks north. How did you? Alexis's expression didn't shift. Terrain analysis suggests the marked location would be tactically unsound, sir. Northern approach offers better cover. A hush rolled across the table. Cross stared. Monroe frowned. Brennan looked annoyed she'd spoken. Foster wasn't finished. Most people don't know insertion criteria for that terrain unless they've actually been there. Alexis didn't reply. Reed felt a chill. Her stance, her knowledge, her reflexes. Something wasn't right. He pulled up his tablet, accessing the clearance database. Kane, Alexis M. The results loaded. Clearance level, Alpha 5. Authorization, Inspector General. Active access. Above 4 officers currently present. The words hit him like a blow. Alpha 5. Reed double-checked, triple-checked. He looked up at Alexis, standing calm as officers murmured. Sir, Reed said quietly, we have a situation. Webb hated interruptions. What now? Reed swallowed. She has Alpha 5 clearance, sir. Higher than yours. Higher than Major Cross's. Higher than everyone except General Monroe. Silence slammed across the room. Brennan's eyebrows shot up. Cross sat forward, eyes darting in disbelief. Monroe exhaled sharply. Webb hesitated. Alexis didn't move, didn't explain, didn't acknowledge the shift. She simply stood there, calm, as if she'd always known this moment would come. Unease simmered. Officers who'd mocked her began studying her differently. Questions filled their faces, but no one voiced them yet. For a moment, no one spoke. Webb forced the briefing forward, pretending the revelation meant nothing. He clicked to satellite images over mountain terrain. When Webb opened a casualty report, Alexis's posture changed subtly. Her weight shifted to a balanced stance. Shoulders drew back. To most, it looked like nothing. To Reed, it looked like someone bracing for impact. Webb cleared his throat. We lost 9 operators from a classified unit. 3 direct action specialists, 2 communications, 2 explosive ordnance, 1 medic, 1 sniper. Insertion specialist, Alexis said softly. You're missing the insertion specialist. That makes 9. Webb's head snapped around. The room froze again. How would you know the unit composition? Monroe asked slowly. Alexis's face remained neutral. It's logical composition for specialized units in that terrain, sir. 1 of each skill set for flexibility. Foster watched her eyes. She wasn't guessing. She was remembering. Her sleeve had ridden up slightly. A dark line of ink showed against pale skin. It didn't look decorative. It looked technical, geometric. He caught only a glimpse before she adjusted her sleeve. Black ink, straight line, something tactical. Webb snapped his folder closed. We will not take input from support staff on classified compositions. Stay in your lane. Alexis said nothing. Her gaze returned to the map. On screen, the cursor hovered over a valley with narrow approaches. Webb gestured. This is where enemy had pre-established positions. They knew exactly when our team would move. Alexis's eyes flicked to the eastern ridge, then western high ground with automatic tactical analysis that didn't come from theory. In her mind, she could still feel the heat, remember radio crackle, hear mortars walking closer. She knew where every member of that team had been when it went wrong. The medic was hit first, she said under her breath. Then comms. Foster heard it. So did Reed. Then Webb said the name that changed everything. Falcon Unit, he announced, tapping the folder. That's the designation of the team compromised. Off-book missions. Now all 9 are confirmed killed. Alexis flinched. The smallest movement, a tightening along her jaw, a tremor at her mouth corner, a brief closing of her eyes like she'd heard a funeral bell. It lasted less than a second, but it was real. Reed's chest tightened. He'd seen people react like that when names of their dead were spoken. There was recognition in that flinch. Pain too old to be manufactured. Webb continued, oblivious. We believe the leak came from inside this command. That's why this briefing is restricted. The door opened quietly. Director Catherine Hayes stepped inside, carrying no papers, just calm authority that changed the room's atmosphere. She wore a simple suit, but her presence pressed into the space powerfully. Webb paused. Director Hayes, we weren't expecting you. Hayes smiled thinly. I prefer to be present when things matter. She walked along along the table, eyes sliding over each officer. Webb, Monroe, Brennan, Cross, Foster. Then her gaze reached Alexis. For the first time, someone looked at her and didn't see anonymous staff. Hayes gave Alexis the smallest nod. Not dismissive, but respectful, as if greeting a colleague. Alexis dipped her chin almost imperceptibly in return. Cross frowned. Do you know her, Director? Hayes didn't answer directly. I know who is supposed to be in this room, and she is exactly where she needs to be. Confusion thickened. Reed watched. Something clicked in his memory. He'd seen Alexis before near secure communications carrying file boxes. A week prior in a different hallway wearing a maintenance badge. Days ago in the cafeteria in civilian clothes, listening more than eating. Different roles, same posture, same eyes. She hadn't just appeared today. She'd been moving through this facility for months, like a ghost wearing different masks. Everyone could feel it now. Something about this woman didn't match the story they'd written. Her clearance, her reflexes, her flinch at Falcon Unit, the way the director nodded like she belonged at the center. The unease grew heavier. They knew something was wrong, but couldn't see what they were really looking at. Webb's patience snapped. Every unanswered question pressed against his pride until it cracked. He stood abruptly, chair scraping. Enough. I'm done with this game. Alexis didn't move as he approached. Her posture stayed calm, unshaken, but Webb's frustration had blinded him to warnings. The way Foster watched her, the way Reed stepped forward, the way Hayes stopped moving. Webb reached out suddenly and grabbed her wrist without any warning or permission. It happened in one single thoughtless, arrogant motion driven by frustration, and it changed absolutely everything in that conference room. When he jerked her arm upward forcefully to make some kind of point, her rolled sleeve slid up just far enough to expose the ink permanently marked underneath on her pale skin. Black lines carved with absolute purpose and precision by someone who knew exactly what they meant. Not decorative art or feminine design, not flowers or butterflies. The unmistakable technical schematic of a high-altitude, low-opening parachute system, rendered in perfect engineering detail. Below the main parachute design, small, precise symbols that told stories. Jump numbers tracking dozens of operations. Operational designations from missions that never officially happened. Coordinates that meant nothing to civilians but everything to those who truly knew that world. The kind of personal permanent recording only earned through countless real combat insertions into hostile territory. Not theory learned in classroom. Not training exercises on safe bases. Actual high-risk operations where a single failure or mistake meant certain death before hitting the ground. The room fell silent so fast, the air seemed sucked out. Foster stared at the tattoo. He knew that design. He knew those symbols. Only insertion specialists earned ink like that. Hayes didn't blink. Her eyes met Alexis's with quiet acknowledgement. Reed moved instinctively, hand raised, ready to intervene. Webb was last to notice. Still gripping her wrist, he scoffed. And what exactly is your rank, coffee girl? Not a soul laughed. Alexis lifted her eyes. Calm, devastatingly calm. When she spoke, her voice was soft but carried absolute authority. My rank is Captain, United States Air Force Special Operations, and you just assaulted a superior officer conducting an authorized investigation. Webb released her wrist as if burned. She lowered her arm, letting the sleeve fall, but everyone had seen enough. The parachute, the symbols, the truth marked on her skin. Cross dropped his pen. It clattered like a gunshot. Brennan went pale. Monroe sat motionless, color draining. Alexis didn't raise her voice. I am not support staff. I was placed here by the Inspector General 7 months ago under deep cover. No one breathed. My assignment was to identify the leak that led to Falcon Unit's deaths. Webb blinked. You know about Falcon Unit? Alexis's gaze drifted to the map. I know about Falcon Unit because I was the insertion specialist. I was there. Shock rippled through the room. Foster whispered, impossible. All 9 were confirmed killed. Alexis finished his sentence. 9 were killed, not 10. The air cracked like ice. Gasps, curses. Cross's jaw went slack. Brennan stared at her hands. Monroe shifted uncomfortably. Webb's mouth opened wordlessly. Alexis's voice stayed controlled. The team you're discussing wasn't ambushed by chance. The enemy knew our exact coordinates, movements, loadout. That intelligence came from inside this command. Hayes's voice entered like a blade. And she spent 7 months tracking the source. Webb sank into his seat. Alexis continued. I've listened, observed, documented. Not one person realized I was anything but staff bringing coffee. She looked around the table. That is why I was chosen. The room felt like it was collapsing. The woman they'd mocked was above them in clearance, rank, experience, discipline, and sacrifice. Yet Alexis held back details. Not everything. There were truths these officers weren't prepared to hear. Names they didn't deserve to know. Secrets belonging only to the dead and to her. She stepped back, letting them sit in wreckage of their assumptions. And for the first time, no one dared laugh. Hayes rose with deliberate calm. When she spoke, her tone carried unmistakable possible authority. Captain Alexis Kane is here by my authorization and the Inspector General's approval. The title hung like a hammer. Captain Kane, not Miss, not staff. Captain, an officer outranking half the room. Webb's eyes widened. Cross went gray. Brennan looked sick. Monroe lowered himself into his chair. Before anyone spoke, the door opened. Agent Marcus Freeman stepped in with investigators from Defense Criminal Investigative Service and the Inspector General's unit. Their presence shifted the room to an active investigation. Freeman nodded to Hayes, then turned to Alexis with recognition. He didn't see a subordinate, but an equal. Hayes clasped her hands. For 7 months, Captain Kane has operated undercover, gathering evidence. Gasps filled the room. A chair creaked. She's observed this facility, its personnel, conversations, and security failures. She gestured to Alexis. Completely undetected, exactly as instructed. Freeman slid a folder onto the table. 23 security violations documented, all recorded with authorization. Cross swallowed hard. Multiple instances of classified information mishandled in unsecured environments. Brennan's breathing became shallow. And most significantly, Hayes said, she's gathered evidence that someone in this room leaked intelligence that led to 9 deaths. The words hit like a shockwave. Monroe stiffened. Cross shut his eyes. Webb's shoulders sagged. Freeman's investigators spread out, securing the room. Alexis didn't gloat. She stood with quiet steadiness, someone who'd carried far heavier burdens than the faces around that table. Hayes looked around. This investigation is now active. No one leaves until interviewed and cleared. The silence was suffocating. Webb broke with a whisper. My God, we mocked her. No one corrected him. The woman they'd dismissed had outranked them in every way that mattered. Alexis finally stepped forward deliberately. She reached into her uniform pocket and carefully pulled out a single folded piece of paper. Not official classified evidence, not a military document. Just simple paper, creased and worn from being held and reread too many countless times over 7 long months. These aren't just statistics on a casualty report, she said quietly. Her voice steady but softened at the edges with genuine emotion she couldn't fully hide. They were real human beings. My teammates, my friends, my family. Her blue eyes lowered to the worn paper as she began reading names that were burned permanently into her memory. Technical Sergeant Michael Chen. He was actively planning to propose to his girlfriend the week after we returned from deployment. He'd nervously shown me the engagement ring 3 separate times, worried about whether she'd say yes. Silence deepened noticeably in the room, like water filling a sealed chamber. Staff Sergeant Jennifer Ruiz. She had twin daughter, just 6 years old. She coached their soccer team enthusiastically every single weekend she wasn't deployed overseas. Someone in the room exhaled shakily, the sound uncomfortably loud in the oppressive quiet. Sergeant First Class David Price, working on his master's in engineering. Cross swallowed hard. Staff Sergeant Omar Hassan, volunteered at a refugee center teaching English. Monroe covered his face. Senior Airman Jessica Torres, saving to open a gym for veteran. A chair creaked. Sergeant Marcus Sullivan, just found out his wife was pregnant, never met his son. Brennan's eyes filled with tears. Technical Sergeant Raymond Foster, mentored every new operator. Master Sergeant Tyler Rodriguez, planning to retire in 6 months. Captain Derek Morrison, my closest friend, our team leader. The room held its breath. Alexis folded the paper, held it to her chest. These weren't assets. They were fathers, mothers, sons, daughters, people with dreams and futures. Her gaze swept the table. Because of one leak, 9 families buried heroes. Brennan let out a broken sob. She pushed her chair back. I did it. It was me. I leaked the coordinates. Every head turned. Brennan's face crumpled, tears streaming. Someone approached me about my divorce debts, offered to clear them for basic operational information. I told myself it was harmless, just numbers. I never thought anyone would die. She wiped her face. I convinced myself it was nothing. Alexis looked at her with calm that cut deeper than anger. You didn't leak numbers. You leaked lives. Brennan broke completely. I'm sorry. God, I never meant, but they did die, Alexis said softly. Not because you were evil, because you were careless, because you let weakness become their vulnerability. Hayes stepped beside Brennan. She wasn't the only one targeted. 11 officers across 4 commands were approached. Financial pressure, failing marriages, ambition. Someone's been systematically exploiting vulnerabilities. Monroe stiffened. Cross shut his eyes. Webb looked ill. And it won't stop, Alexis added, unless we dismantle the network completely. Then slowly, Webb rose, his hands unsteady. He straightened his uniform twice before managing. He stood at full attention, facing the woman he'd mocked. Then he lifted his hand and saluted her. The room didn't move. No one breathed. Then Cross stood, eyes glistening. He saluted, hand trembling. Monroe rose slowly. His salute was crisp, formal. Foster stood with sharp precision. Reed came to rigid attention, salute firm and unwavering. Every person who'd mocked her now stood in reverent silence and saluted the woman who'd carried more honor, pain, and courage than all of them combined. The room settled. untold. Alexis didn't look triumphant. She simply lowered her gaze and took a slow breath. Webb tried to speak. "Captain Kane, I want to..." She raised her hand gently, stopping him. "Please don't. This isn't about apology. My teammates didn't die so I could earn praise." Her eyes swept each face. "They died because someone was careless, because someone didn't think." No one breathed. And that kills faster than bullets. She folded the paper with her teammates' names, tucked it near her heart where she'd carried it for 7 months. Justice is what they deserved. Not pity, justice. Hayes nodded. Freeman stepped closer. "We need to move. There's more to uncover." Alexis didn't hesitate. "Then let's finish it." Hayes, Freeman, and investigators guided her toward the door. As she reached the threshold, Webb found his voice. "Captain Kane, what you did today..." She paused. "I did my duty, and now I'll do the rest of it." She stepped into the hallway, investigators around her, footsteps steady, purposeful. Behind her, officers remained standing, shaken but changed. They watched the door close, each carrying new understanding of arrogance's cost, security's fragility, and the strength of the quietest warrior among them. Never mistake silence for weakness. Some battles are fought long before salutes are given. Many heroes walk quietly, carrying scars no one sees, memories never spoken, burdens heavier than uniforms showed. Alexis Kane was one of countless silent warriors who did their duty before anyone knew their name. Her story reminds us courage doesn't always shout. Sometimes it stands in the back unnoticed until truth forces it into light. Take a moment to honor the fallen, respect the unseen. Remember the price of freedom we take for granted. If this story moved you, subscribe to Secrets Never Told. These stories keep courage alive for generations. Until next time, remember strength comes in many forms. The quietest person might be the strongest. Stay safe, stay strong, and never forget the heroes among us.